Hello, good morning, all of you. We are a little sorry that the day has started at 8:30 and we have more than 431 attendees in MS Teams and about 200 in Facebook and around 200 plus in the YouTube streaming. And all of you, very good morning from CSIR NEAST, and then the number of people will increase. And today we have a very interesting session, and three, four lectures will be there. The first lecture will be a young scientist from US, Dr. Preeti Badrinarayan, and she will be talking about the exploring drug discovery through computational microscope. And then we have two partners. One is Royal Society of Chemistry, which is a world well-known organization, and the second is DBT India Alliance. And the fourth lecture is by two young scientists who are working in CSIR NEAST, Dr. Himakshi Sharma and Lijo John, where they will be describing you the efforts of the Indian government to have a hackathon on drug discovery and how one can use the computational approaches to discover new drugs. With this, I wish you a very successful day, and most of you will be worried about who will be your mentors, what is the program, how exactly we are going to be connected. These are very important questions which we need to find answers, and we found some answers. We are exploring for some more answers, but be assured that each one of you will be connected by the end of the day. If you have any problems, please put it in the Facebook or whatever, and our people will get back to you. Please be patient. Watch our website, which will give you the updates from 4 p.m. onwards. And after these 4 lectures, you will have an orientation of what is the way forward and how the mentors are allocated. They will be displayed in the website, as well as we are trying to create a large number of WhatsApp groups. Personally, I am very unhappy that we have to use an app that is not made in India. But it is very important to do something. So we are using WhatsApp, and we will continue to use it till we find out another alternative approach. And I also request you to understand that we are in a country which is developing. Power cuts are not abnormal here. Internet disconnections are very common in Northeast, and there are a large number of days where we had to live without internet because our NKN connection is cut. So there is a lot of uncertainty which puts some brakes in our enthusiasm to connect to the most eminent people all over the world. Because if I ask a Nobel laureate to come and then give a talk, and at that particular point of time, I cannot even contact him because there is no internet and there is no power, it's very difficult to describe. So we are trying to find out very effective alternatives of how we will be able to sustain this activity of connecting to more than 15,000 students and mentors, and hopefully this will be a unique exercise. I need all of you to give your best to make this program a grand success. I thank you, and then I will ask Dr. Jatin Kalita, the head Research Planning and Business Development, to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Jatin.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to one and all the CSIR SRTP participants. Good morning to all the CSIR SRTP participants, mentors, experts, and Director CSIR NEAST, Dr. G. Narahari Sastry, and Dr. P.T. Badrinarayan. Today is the second day of CSIR SRTP orientation program, and we have today with us Dr. Preeti Badrinarayan based at USA. Dr. Preeti Badrinarayan is presently at the University of California, San Diego, USA. Dr. Badrinarayan has done her PhD at CSIR IICT under the guidance of Dr. Narahari Sastry, after which she moved to CSIR IMTech Chandigarh. She has been awarded with the prestigious DBT Welcome Trust Early Career Grant, which is being hosted by CSIR IMTech Chandigarh. She is also a recipient of the DST Women Scientist Grant, Fulbright Postdoctoral Fellowship, and grant by the National Science Foundation, USA, for the use of Anton 2, the specialized supercomputer. The main focus of her research is to study the activation mechanisms, allostery, and protein-protein interaction networks to understand the regulation of kinases in cancer and develop targeted therapies. She has over a decade of experience in industry, research, and academia. Dr. Preeti will be delivering a talk on an important topic, exploring drug discovery through a computational microscope. Hope that our participant will be highly benefited by her talk. Now I hand over the floor to Dr. Preeti. Dr. Preeti, please.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be interacting with all of y'all as part of the CSIR Summer Research Training Program 2020. At the onset, I would like to give a big shout out to CSIR, Dr. Narahari Sastry, as well as the entire team for creating this platform, which has enabled all of us to connect and innovate. So coming to the topic of innovation, during this time of pandemic, one of the pressing issues for innovation is drug discovery. One need not always look for drug discovery during a pandemic for a virus. We also see that the immunity is down and the cure is necessary for different diseases as well. So today I would like to take you on a voyage of drug discovery, the different methods that are used, and the methods that I use, and over the period of time, how I ventured into this path. So, for a disease and to get a cure or to design a drug, there are different methods used. Like some people use chemical synthesis, or some try to extract a drug from natural compounds and test it, while some try to use assays or NMR, or people try to mimic the, in case of cancer, like I have given an example of cancer here. So people try to mimic it in a mouse model to study exactly how it works in vivo. Likewise, people try to see through images. Imaging is a very upcoming field where you try to see the structure not only through X-ray but through cryo-EM and different microscopy techniques. And one important role played in drug discovery is by microbiology, wherein you try to study the details of the cell through a microscope. And coming to today's topic, the area in which I am interested in is computational drug discovery. If seen, all these different methods and all these different strategies are all interconnected. They are all circulating around the same common agenda, which is to find a cure for a particular disease. So today I would like to take you through a journey how I, as a microbiologist, having done a post-graduation in microbiology, ventured and explored the field of drug discovery through a computational microscope by studying the protein structure, or through ligand-based drug design, or by studying the different conformational changes that occur in a protein using molecular dynamic simulations, or using bioinformatics and chemoinformatics techniques, and generating fingerprints to study a large scale data, or to study sequence doing a sequence analysis, or as of now, where I'm using artificial intelligence and machine learning to handle the big data and to understand the patterns that get generated from a experiment. So let's begin. The structure that I showed you in the previous slide was that of a kinase. I work in a field where I study different aspects of kinase, and I try to understand how the kinase regulation uh, is linked to cancer. So at the beginning, when I had completed my MSc in microbiology, the only thing I knew was about a protein, that a protein has a structure, a secondary structure, a tertiary structure. Likewise, it's the same in kinase. In kinase, you have this structure, and there is a substrate binding site. And most drug designers, at least 15-20 years back, they tried to design inhibitors for this substrate binding site, which is conserved throughout the kinase, because the kinases are a family which are very similar. So the substrate binding site is very similar. So therefore, if a inhibitor was designed for a kinase B, it would also go and bind to kinase C, D, E as well. So therefore, the specificity was very less. Then people found that, like, all proteins undergo conformational changes under physiological conditions. So likewise, kinase also, when the alpha helix and the DFG loop, which are two important elements in kinase, when these undergo rotation, the kinase adopts a conformation called an inactive conformation. And this inactive conformation opens up a allosteric pocket, which is not observed in the active conformation in which the substrate binds. So people started designing inhibitors for this allosteric site, since this allosteric site was not conserved in the kinase. That means it was not similar in all kinases. So therefore, if a allosteric inhibitor was designed for a kinase B, it would go and bind only to kinase B. It would not go and bind to kinase C, D, E, F. But what happened was these allosteric inhibitors didn't display good activity. So there was a need to design an inhibitor which would go and bind to both the substrate binding site as well as the allosteric site. The idea being, the fragment binding to the substrate binding site would bring in efficacy, while those binding to the allosteric site would bring in specificity. So to do so, we came up with a idea that why not do drug repurposing. But drug repurposing could not be done with the entire FDA approved drug, since herein we wanted to design an inhibitor which binds to both these sites. So we went for fragment based drug design and came up with a template wherein we have 3 regions in the template, wherein this first fragment would go and bind to the substrate binding site, and the yellow color fragments would go and bind to the allosteric binding site. And we connected these 2 fragments with a common linker. And we tested this. So if you, as you can see in the picture, the first is a substrate binding inhibitor, which only goes and binds to the substrate binding site, or the ATP site as it is called. Whereas the inhibitor that we designed, here you can see the blue part goes and binds to the ATP binding site, whereas the yellow part goes and binds to the allosteric binding sites. Thus, we were able to bring in both efficacy and specificity. But the problem here was, since the allosteric inhibitors were very less in number, the different inhibitors that we designed were not very diverse. So to bring in diversity and to design more compounds, we opted for virtual screening. Virtual screening is a technique wherein you screen for a wide array of compounds, or a database of compounds, to find the best possible candidates which can go and bind to a particular site in your drug target. But one has to always be wise and smart before doing a virtual screening and do some housekeeping activities, because virtual screening, especially if you involve 3D structures, it takes a lot of time, resource, and we might end up getting false positives. So to make sure that we do not end up getting false positives, we first used a similarity matrix using chemoinformatics, which is nothing but we use this matrix helps you to remove all multiple copies of your compound. Like, we would not want to have multiple copies of the same file in our computer because it makes no sense. One copy is enough. So in the same way, in the first step, we remove the multiple copies of the compounds that were present in one particular database or across several databases. Having done that, we wanted, in the second step, we wanted only those compounds which showed a possibility to go and bind to the two different sites and kinase. To do that, we already had an idea of what are the possible interactions that these fragments use to bind to these two different sites. So we used an interaction filter here and filtered out the compounds uh, in the next step. In the last and final step, when we were sure that we have a good and clean data set, we now ran virtual screening, wherein we screened fragments for both the substrate binding site as well as the allosteric site. And then using these final fragments that we got, which were filtered out after the third step, we used the same technique, the fragment tailoring approach, which we had used earlier. And this time we designed compounds which were more diverse than the previous ones. So while doing this, we realized that the substrate binding site and the allosteric site are not the only two places where the inhibitor can go and bind. The kinase binding site as such, or the kinase as such, is quite diverse enough, and the kinase undergoes so many conformational changes that one can always access different small subpockets in the kinase, which are very diverse, which are not similar across the kinome, and use them to bring in specificity. So to do that, we did a study of all the available kinase structures and then divided the kinase active site into a general uh, with the general motives, and then we mapped the different small subpockets that are found usually in all the kinases. Having done that, we mapped the different interactions that we had observed that the different kinase inhibitors use to bind to the different regions. So these we called as the hotspots. So now we knew that if a kinase inhibitor had to be designed, what are the different regions that they can access, and what are the interactions probably they will be using, and if so that is the case, we can likely find a chemical entity which complements the chemical nature of the residues present in that particular region. So after this, when we were doing this, we had to go through a set of kinase structures, and in most cases we found that the conformation of the kinase was reported wrongly, and there were papers coming out every second month stating that the conformation was not correct. So since we already knew that what are the residues and what are the different motifs that come into play and how they change, and we knew that the non-covalent interactions play a very major role in the conformational transitions in kinase. So based on the distance and angles, we developed a metric which, when used, can give a conformation of kinase. Like if a person has a structure of an unknown kinase or a structure which was modeled using a certain template and a person doesn't know which conformation that particular kinase is in, one can use this metric and then find out the conformation, whether it's an active conformation or an inactive conformation. While we were doing so, till now, we were only working with the static structures, and we were seeing that there are different X-ray structures deposited in PDB in different conformation of kinase, and we were also studying how the different conformations affect drug binding. So there was a curiosity to see how exactly these conformational changes occur. So to do that, we did a molecular dynamic simulations. The molecular dynamic simulations helped us to understand how the G loop or the A loop or the DFG loop in kinase or the alpha helix, which play an important part, how exactly do they turn? And when we were doing this, the trajectory gives you so many frames, and it is quite impossible to find out what are the different interactions that are involved and what are the different interaction networks that undergo change. So to do that, we generated a molecular interaction fingerprint. Using this, one can easily map the changes in an interaction network in a molecular dynamics trajectory. The reason for doing that was to find out whether a particular inhibitor of kinase uh, causes a conformational change in a kinase, or does the kinase undergo conformational change on its own and the inhibitor just binds to it and locks it in that particular conformation. So while I was doing all these things, uh, my PhD was over, and like when you leave your home, the first thing you have to do is you have to learn how to cook, because you come out of the shelter of your home and your parents. So your PhD is also a similar thing. You come out of the shelter of your PhD supervisor. So I decided that let me not just stick to one kinase or two kinase. Let me start from scratch on a clean white board all over again and study all the kinases and study all possible aspects of kinases, be it sequence, structure, or alignment, or drugs, any possible thing that any possible knowledge of kinase that is available, I studied and then I analyzed. When I was doing so, I realized that there are several databases which are very good, which give you information about sequence, structure, mutations, interactions, or drugs, but these are all in different places. And one major thing that I noticed was none of these provide any analysis of the sequences or analysis of the structures or correlate the analysis between sequence, structure, and interactions. So therefore, uh, based on the study that I had done for 3 or 4 months, I didn't want somebody else to spend the same time. So we at CSIR IMTech initiated a formation of a database, which is also not exactly a database, which is like an online drug discovery workspace for Kinome, wherein we have put in all the data that we have collected. Not only data, we have the analysis of this data, the tools that we have developed, the binaries of the tools that have been that were developed are there in the backend. Likewise, at as as the project is going on, whatever data we are collecting, we are putting it in the backend. This is soon going to go public. So this work that I started was made possible because of the generous support of Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. And because of this support that I got from Wellcome Trust DBT, I could think to do many things. So while I was doing this, I realized that the cryo-EM came into play, and so we wanted to not only stick to computations, but we had understood that we need it is an drug discovery is an interdependent process, and therefore to study the activation mechanisms of different of kinases and oncogenic kinases, it is necessary to understand the how the mutations work, to understand the allostery, the dynamics, the
Madam, you
interaction
have another
network.
5 minute time.
Okay. So we started with this oncogenic kinases. We could get a cryo-EM structure of this oncogenic kinases. But since you can see that initially everybody had an X-ray crystal structure, which was just the catalytic unit, but we had a very big structure. Therefore, we used supercomputers to carry out the simulation. Since the supercomputer simulations ran for milliseconds, we got different conformations in different frames. And so to handle that data, we did Markov modeling, which is nothing but it tells you, it clusters the different conformations into different nodes. Here, if you can see, these different circles are different nodes, and each circle has similar conformations in it. And the arrows, they indicate the probability of transitioning between discrete conformations. So having done this, we used Brownian dynamics to understand how the binding occurs to get the rate constants. And then using this, we found out the different possible binding sites. And after finding the different binding sites, we wanted to prioritize it. So using machine learning and artificial intelligence, we converted this data into machine readable format, and then came up with the different possible binding sites, which our experimental collaborators have they are working on it, and they have confirmed and verified the likelihood of using this for designing a drug. So this is a new method that we have used, wherein we have tried to combine Brownian dynamics and classical MD together. And since it's a pandemic and everybody is working on coronavirus, one initiative that has been taken up by Scripps Research Institute in San Diego is wherein, with the availability of the structure, it's a joint effort, community effort, wherein each and every individual, based on their capacity and interest, can contribute. So I thought maybe somebody would be interested in this. And this entire exercise was generously supported by National Science Foundation, Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance, and the Department of Science and Technology. So thank you. This is how I explored the drug discovery world and moved from using a compound microscope to a computational microscope. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Sara Iqbal. Welcome, Dr. Sara Iqbal.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dr.
morning.
Sara Iqbal and participants of CSIR SRTP 2020. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sara Iqbal, who will be presenting the second lecture on CSIR SRTP 2020. Dr. Sara Iqbal is the lead communication and public engagement of Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. Dr. Sara has joined Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance in late 2014, where she has been managing their public engagement program, science communication, and research leadership training initiatives. She received her BSc honors in chemistry from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and master's and doctorate in biochemistry from University of Oxford, UK. During her PhD, she investigated the role of extracellular matrix protein, fibrillin, in various connective tissue disorders, using a variety of molecular and cell biology techniques. Dr. Sara did her postdoctoral research work at the Scripps Research Institute, Florida, USA, where she studied molecular mechanisms underlying neurodegenerative disorders such as Parkinson's, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and Alzheimer's disease. She was also involved in various drug discovery projects. Sara has published in various journals, some of them which includes Scientific Reports, Structure, Science Translational Medicine, and lot others. We thank DBT India Alliance for accepting our director's invitation. Now I may request Dr. Sara Iqbal to kindly address the participants of CSR SRTP 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will share my screen now.
Okay.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
give me a
Okay,
minute.
ma'am. You can share.
Yeah. Can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am. It is coming. Yes, ma'am. You just go to live presentation show means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it? Can you see it now?
Yeah, presentation is coming, ma'am.
Yeah.
You go to slideshow and from the beginning.
Yeah, it's on the first slide.
But it is not coming in full screen, madam.
Can you expand it, ma'am?
Oh, I did. It's on full screen.
But
Let me do
here
it again.
It is not showing.
Is it full screen now?
No, ma'am.
No. Let's change. Slideshow.
Slideshow from the beginning. Yes, ma'am.
Is it now? Is it working now?
No, ma'am. It's showing only the. It's not showing the full screen.
Oh, okay.
You can go like this only, madam. There is no issue.
If there's no problem, you can continue like this.
Okay, because on my screen it's I can see
Yes,
it's
your
full.
screen is visible.
Okay. You see my first slide, DBT Welcome Trust India Line.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
Continue. No?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue.
You can continue, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the
Okay,
floor is
thank-
yours.
Okay,
you, ma'am.
thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and India Alliance to the orientation program. And before I begin, I must also thank CSIR, Dr. Shikhar Mande and Dr. NS Shastri for inviting us to be partners on this very interesting, exciting, and important program that they have. That they'll be running over the next 2 months with a great team, as I can already see. So I am not going to deliver a scientific lecture. I think Preeti has done a fantastic job of really helping us understand how she is approaching drug discovery. And I will just very quickly take you through the program that I am part of, the organization that I am part of, that has also funded researchers like Preeti. But before I tell you a bit more about my organization, I would like to quickly remind you about the research cycle and where my organization also fits in this whole process of doing research. So of course, any research always starts with an idea, with a research question, with a hypothesis. And that alone is not enough for you to be able to do your research. You need a team, you need you need equipments, you need reagents, and various other things to do your research. So for that, you need to find funding. And this is where a lot of organizations, including CSIR and my organization, comes in, that provides funding to researchers or teams of researchers. Of course, once you found the funding agency that you would like to apply to, just on the basis of an idea, we are not going to give you the money. So you have to really put together a strong proposal that where you will include how you're going to carry out your research. So you prepare and submit a funding proposal to the funding agency. So once you receive the funding from the funding agencies, when you go ahead and do your research, during the course of research, you obviously generate a lot of data. So you have to gather and analyze your data and then see if you've discovered something new. If you've discovered something new, something that the field doesn't know about, that the larger community doesn't know anything about, And that's when you go and you first publish your findings in a scientific journal. And following that, you also present your findings at various scientific conferences. Sometimes your institution that you're based at also releases press notes to inform the media, who can then inform the larger public. And you also may consider writing popular science articles to tell people about the kind of work that you're doing and what discoveries you've made. And many a times your research may also have an impact on policy, on how be it on health policy or science policy. So then you're back to the drawing board, where during the course of your research, you again stumbled upon another idea that you would want to test again and work on. And that's when you again go back to the funding agency to ask for more funds. And this keeps repeating and going on. So this is basically where my organization fits in the whole research cycle. We provide funding to excellent researchers in the country. We are only about a decade old. We started in 2008. And over the years, we have launched various fellowship programs to support researchers in biomedical and health research in India. If I can quickly take you through some objectives of the fellowship program when we started, it was really to implement a globally recognized grants funding model to develop effective mechanisms to nurture outstanding scientists in the country, to also enable transitions back to India. There were many scientists who work in different parts of the world. So the idea behind this program was also to help them make that transition back to India if they wanted to set up a lab or a research group in the country. And really provide a pan-India platform where scientists can perform competitive, internationally competitive biomedical and health research. And another very important aspect of our program continues to be devising new mechanisms to support and promote clinical and public health research in India. So with that, this is what our fellowship program looks like. It funds individual scientists, and you will have to have a PhD if you would like to apply for any of our basic biomedical schemes. For clinical and public health research, you will have to have an MD or an MD PhD or similar degrees. So we provide fellowships and funding to scientists at different stages of their careers. So starting from early career fellowships to intermediate fellowships for scientists who are who would like to set up a lab, a research group, and then to senior scientists who would like to continue the work that they have really established themselves well in. So starting from right after your PhD, you can apply for the early career fellowships. Then, after 5 years, these are 5-year fellowships. You can also apply for intermediate fellowships to really strengthen your position in the science ecosystem, and then senior fellowships to continue your research program. This is just to give you an idea of the pan-India reach of India Alliance. We have scientists really spread across the country in different cities and different institutions. More than 391 awards have been made so far to scientists. And this is a general spread. We really fund a whole range of areas. Not all of them are really represented here, but this is just to give you an idea of the different types of disciplines that we cover in our fellowships. So starting from basic cell biology to neuroscience to molecular medicine, structural biology, and public health and clinical sciences as well. So let me just quickly take you through a few profiles. Like I told you, we have funded more than 300 scientists, but just to give you an idea of the spread of science that we fund and the scientists we fund. So we have funded Lulitika Mandal, who is based at IISER Mohali. She's a developmental biologist, so she studies how organisms develop and how organs and different species really develop. So she's currently working on she's studying the formation of blood cells using a fruit fly model, and she's done some fantastic work in this field. Then we've also funded a researcher, Dr. Nikhil Patkar, who interestingly is a clinician. He trained as a doctor and is now doing research. And he is a cancer researcher, and he and his team are developing cost-effective methods for diagnosing and monitoring certain types of cancers, which otherwise are slightly difficult to diagnose at an early stage. Then we've also supported scientists at AIIMS New Delhi and IIIT Delhi, Dr. Tav Pritesh Sethi. And again, Tav Pritesh has a very interesting profile. He also started off as a clinician scientist, but is now a very, very good data scientist. He is mostly his research is involved in how to detect sepsis, which is a very deadly infectious disease that a lot of babies catch when they're in the pediatric ICUs. So how do you really detect that onset of sepsis early on, so that doctors can put in the right kind of interventions to save the baby? And he's also been very active in the COVID-19 work that is currently ongoing in Delhi. Then next up we have Dr. Suparna Ghosh Jairath, who's a nutrition researcher, and she's really trying to study the nutritive value of indigenous food in of tribal communities. As you know, we have so many tribal communities in the country, so and they have a very unique food system. So she's trying to understand what the nutritive value of these foods is, and also how this might be used, how this can be used to really tackle hidden hunger, rampant malnutrition that we are seeing in the country. So again, finally, the last profile that I would like to share with you is of Dr. Abhi Vanak. He's an ecologist, and he's trying to understand why rabies is still a problem in India, and how rabies is transmitting from urban areas to rural areas, and what kind of vaccination strategies can we employ to control rabies in India. So you can see there's a whole spread of science and scientists that India Alliance funds. And of course, you already heard the fantastic work of Preeti, who's also an India Alliance fellow. Finally, in addition to funding individual scientists, we also have now started funding teams of scientists, because as we know that science is really a team effort. It's not it's not an effort of an individual, but of different people coming together. So we have also launched a few schemes to support this kind of research, where different teams can come together and tackle a very important health challenge for India. And we've also provide grants to different clinical centers that would like to build capacity for clinical research. As I already showed you examples of Tav Pritesh and Nikhil Patkar, who are clinical researchers who transitioned from being a clinician to a researcher. And so we also have programs that would support and promote clinical research and public health research in India. This is again a program that India Alliance is implementing on behalf of the Department of Biotechnology and Cancer Research UK, and is really meant to bring teams in UK and India together to find affordable approaches to cancer. Finally, these are some of our other programs that I don't think we have enough time to go through, so I thought I'll probably list them on one slide and give you an idea of what are some of the other things that we do. We have various programs that are targeted at promoting national and international research collaborations. Research is no longer restricted to a country. We need to have strong global research networks to be able to tackle the challenges like the one we are facing currently, COVID-19. So we have various programs that are designed to address that. We also run various capacity building and professional skills workshops for clinicians and biomedical scientists in the country, and students, of course. Then we have programs that are designed to strengthen the research ecosystem. So the ecosystem that the science exists in. So we need to also strengthen that ecosystem. So we have various programs that aim to do that. And of course, and a very important part of what we do is also making science more accessible, more engaging, and also more participatory. So we have various programs around science education, public awareness, and public engagement with science. So with that, I just want to quickly introduce you to the small team that's behind all these programs. And if you want more information,
Just a
please
minor
visit.
interrupt, Sarah ma'am. Your slides are not moving actually. If you can just,
Oh.
your slides are in the first slide only.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's,
Okay, sure.
that's a shame. Can you see now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it's fine.
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Oh, okay. Right. So I hope whatever, I'll just quickly take you through the profiles of the researchers maybe, if I still have some time. This is Dr. Lolitika Mandal, the developmental biologist, Dr. Nikhil Patkar, Dr. Tavpratesh Sethi, and Suparna Ghosh Jairath, and Dr. Abhi Vanak. That's a shame that my slides were not moving, so sorry about that. Anyway, so I will just end my talk here. Just point you to our website, which is www.indiaalliance.org. So you can go on our website and find out more about all our programs. And we are also quite active on social media. So please do connect with us on social media if you are there. I'm sharing these different social media handles here on the screen. So happy to take any questions if the participants have. And thank you once again for the opportunity for presenting the work that we do at India Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll just see if there are some questions around just for 2 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, yes, and
Thank you, Sarah ma'am. We haven't got questions as yet, but I think we will, once we finish the complete series of talk, then we will get back to you with all
Sure.
the questions.
Sure.
Then we can have a discussion like all the questions. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the talk.
Sure.
Thank you so
No
much.
problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Delay, we will shift to our next speakers, Dr. Himakshi Sharma and Mr. Lijo John. They will be giving us a very interesting talk on Drug Discovery Hackathon, Innovate New Drugs Against COVID-19. So before I invite them to give their talk, I will just, it's my pleasure to give them a short and brief introduction. So Dr. Himakshi Sharma completed her PhD from Tezpur University, Assam in 2019. She is working presently as a postdoctoral fellow in CSIR NIST under the guidance of Dr. G.N. Sastry. Her research interests are on unraveling the biological mechanisms and problems using molecular dynamics simulations, molecular modeling, machine learning, and network pharmacology approaches. Currently, she is working on the development of indigenous disease-specific open-source software molecular property diagnostics suite breast cancer, MPDS. So that is all about Dr. Himakshi Sharma. And Mr. Lijo John is currently pursuing PhD under the supervision of Dr. G.N. Sastry from CSIR IISc Hyderabad, but he's currently based in CSIR NIST Jorhat. He's one of the core developer of MPDS and indigenous software for computer-aided drug discovery and compound library module of MPDS. His research interests lies in the development of tools for drug discovery, application of machine learning techniques, classification and clustering of chemical space, AI-based drug repurposing techniques, and chemoinformatics. So with this, I now request Dr. Himakshi and Mr. Lijo John to please take their time. Very good morning, everyone. Myself, Dr. Himakshi Sharma. Before I start my presentation, first of all, I would like to thank our director, Dr. G. Narahari Sastry, and the SRTP organizing team for giving me this opportunity and this platform to speak about Drug Discovery Hackathon. I'm going to present a very interesting ongoing, interesting event that will be that is going to happen in our country on June last week. That is Drug Discovery Hackathon 2020. So before I explain about this event, I would like to give an introduction about what hackathon exactly is. So it is an event where enthusiastic people come together and they solve a grand challenge in a collaborative way. So since everybody is aware of fighting of COVID-19 pandemic, so our Honorable Prime Minister of India, along with Principal Scientific Advisor, MHRD Innovation Cell, and CSIR and AICTE are conducting Drug Discovery Hackathon in order to combat COVID-19 disease. So, the project will actually open for national as well as international researchers, faculties, students, those who have Indian passports. The hackathon project will be conducting in multiple phases. Here I'm going to talk about 2 phases. Each will be on 2 to 3 months of duration. And the entire exercise is expected to be completed by March 2021. So in first track, people are going to identify novel molecules against COVID-19 for druggable targets using various approaches such as drug repurposing, de novo drug designing, and QSAR, etc. So the potential effective molecules that will be generated in the first track will be further validated or synthesized by CSIR laboratories, different startups, and other interested organization. So in the second track, it is about developing new tools and algorithms based on AI/ML approaches for computational biology, for bioinformatics and molecular modeling purposes. So the participant who will solve the problem in a very effective way, they will award a precious prize. So before conducting this program, hackathon, what are the important things? So there are 2 important things which we need to be considered. First is the problem statement. The problem statement are the questions where students are going to address. So in this regard, various scientists, postdocs, and researchers across India, they have submitted problem statements, and it's been reviewed by eminent scientists all over the India based on novelty, innovation, and they remove the redundancy. So our director, Dr. G.N. Sastry, is the chairperson for Problem Statement Evaluation Committee. Now, the second most important thing is development of a single drug discovery platform where the student will conduct their calculations to solve the given problem.
So here we are going to focus on a very important drug discovery platform. Dr. Sastri's and group is working on the development of this indigenous drug discovery software known as Molecular Property Diagnostic Suite, in short MPDS. The idea is to provide a single platform to integrate bioinformatics, chemoinformatics, and various drug discovery softwares in a single platform, so that student can use only a single platform to solve this kind of problem. So I hope this event will create opportunities, and it will engage and connect the researchers and students to bring their innovative ideas and creativity to combat COVID-19 through in silico drug discovery projects. So I will stop here. I would like to hand over the next session to Mr. Lijo John. He'll be explaining about this MPDS. Thank you very much.
A very good morning to one and all. I am Lijo John, and I'm a PhD scholar under Dr. Shastri, and I would like to give my presentation on the indigenous software that we are developing in our group called Molecular Property Diagnostic Suite for drug discovery. So basically, Dr. Himashi has talked about the various problems, the various problem statements that we are going to solve in the big drug discovery hackathon. And I would like to tell you that MPDS software that we are developing can be one of the very important tool that can be used to solve these kind of drug discovery problems, in silico based drug discovery problems. So this is, when I talk about MPDS, I'll just like to mention that this is a pan-India indigenous software for assessing the therapeutic potential of molecules. So all of us know that in order to find some new molecule, some new drug for the COVID or any other diseases, we need to screen a lot of molecules from the different databases. From the whole chemical space, we have to take a lot of molecules, and then we have to assess, or we have to test whether these molecules can be taken forward in the drug discovery process or not. So assessing the therapeutic potential of molecules is basically to test the quality, or just to see whether the molecule can be a drug-like or not. And again, MPDS is actually a Galaxy-based online drug discovery platform. So Galaxy is a web platform where there is a possibility of hooking, or it's a possibility to add our own tools that we have developed, or softwares that we have developed into this portal, and so that it can be used from anyone. So it can be used for anything related to drug discovery. So as you can see here, so it is built on Galaxy, one of the feature of MPDS, and then it also offers a cloud-based solution. So a cloud-based solution is like you can use the tool and you can store the data from anywhere in the cloud, and you can just access it, as well as you can just use it for your purpose. And also the Galaxy is also giving the opportunity to store a large amount of data. So that is a big data. So when we say about big data, you can really imagine the amount of data that has to be harnessed in this database so as to use for the various applications. So in the MPDS, there are mainly important, I can say 5 important modules, or the modules, the specific modules which are used for this kind of exercise. So the first important module is called the data library module. So in a data library module, it consists, or it will contain a lot of information on the available literatures, the scientific literatures published for some particular disease or some particular protein or target. So it will consist and contain all type of this information of the literature, the targets, and the genes associated with all these things. So one more important thing in the data library is one of the very important component of MPDS is the compound library. So compound library is basically where we have our own chemical space. We have developed our own chemical library, and we have put there. And this chemical library or this compound library can be used for assessing or for analyzing a large number of molecules for various therapeutic purposes, or it can be used like for many other like applications also. And then we have a module called data processing module. So in a data processing module, if you see, there will be softwares or tools that is for specifically for file format converters. So when you take a molecule, it can be in a SMILE format, it can be a MOL format, or it can be a SDF format. You need to process it so as to make an input for your computer or like for your algorithm. So data processing module contain all these tools or softwares for calculating the various kind of descriptors that will be required, molecular descriptors that will be required for giving as an input for the software or the tool. And then we have a module called data analysis module. In the data analysis module, we have several options where we can see the various drug-like properties of the molecule and the various options of doing the in silico analysis, in silico drug discovery analysis. It can be a docking, it can be building a QSAR model, or it can be doing a molecular dynamics simulation. So all these softwares are put together as a package in the data analysis module. And we have then advanced modules. So in the advanced modules, like we have incorporated various machine learning algorithms or AI techniques which can be used and which can be applied to these chemical data set to obtain some kind of new idea or new insights for drug discovery. And that can also be used to predict a lot of new molecules with the desired properties that is required to take it for a drug discovery process. And then we have also user developed programs. So that is also one of the feature in the Galaxy, that is whatever programs or tools we have developed, we can incorporate it to the Galaxy. And that is all that gives one of the boosting character to the Galaxy based platforms, where you can hook up your own softwares, your own tools which you have written to this kind of drug discovery platform. I'll move ahead and I'll just show you, this is the home page of the molecular property diagnostic suite. And you can see that we have in the left hand side, you have MPDS modules here. There is a possibility to import the various data. There is a possibility of drawing the molecules, the chemical structure you can draw as it is there. And then there is a data library module where you have target library, literature, gene library, and compound library. Then we have data processing module, data analysis module, and so on. Yeah, moving on to the next one. Like these are the MPDS web portals that is already which is developed, and it is available freely, and I encourage everyone to just go and look at it and just see how you can use it for your own research, and we'll be very happy to help you, and you can always contact us for this regarding these things. So we have developed the MPDS TB platform, that is tuberculosis platform. So that is again a disease specific web portal only for tuberculosis. Then we have diabetes mellitus platform for diabetes, and then we have MPDS metabolic disorder platform, that is for metabolic disorders. And then we have also developed the COVID-19 portal, where you will get a lot of information of the COVID, as well as all the tools available for performing any kind of in silico drug discovery analysis in the platform there. And then we also have MPDS HIV portal and MPDS NAF LD portal. So the last two portals are currently under development. So the take home message what I would like to give you is that the idea of this drug discovery hackathon and also the MPDS is to inculcate the culture of writing and developing programs for drug discovery. So the students or the researchers, they must try to build their own programs for the drug discovery process. And then crowdsourcing the drug discovery process by involving a large number of students and researchers who are enthusiastic about solving the grand challenges. So we know that drug discovery itself is a very big grand challenge, and it involves people from varied backgrounds to solve for a given particular problem. So this platform or this hackathon will be an event where a large number of people can come together and solve this particular grand challenge for the society, for the mankind. And also to become self-reliant in the area of computer-aided drug discovery by exploring multifaceted ways in which algorithms and softwares can be developed, can be written for drug discovery process. So these are the I can say these are the best take-home messages for all of you, for all the students who are watching this. Yeah, and I would like to thank, at the end of this, I would like to thank my supervisor, Dr. G.N. Shastri, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you and to address the MPDS and the grant and the drug discovery hackathon problems. And that's all from my side. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So we have with us Dr. Rajesh Pariswat, sir. First of all, we'd like to thank Dr. Rajesh Pariswat, sir, for accepting the director's request to be a part of the SRTP, the online program with his lecture. Thank you, sir. Rajesh Pariswat is the Indian manager for Royal Society of Chemistry. His responsibilities include developing and managing the RSC's strategy, objectives, and activities in India. He previously worked as a senior science and innovation advisor at the British Deputy High Commission, a role in which he was responsible for facilitating research collaborations between universities, research establishments, and businesses between India and the UK. He started his career as a journalist and worked for leading media organizations in India, covering science, technology, and business areas. So we welcome Rajesh sir to SRTP, and now it's all up to you to take over the mic. So please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, you're audible. You're audible.
Okay. Thank you. Just a minute. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this initiatives. Good morning to all of you who are listening early in the morning, being part of this summer training, research training program. At the outset, I don't have a presentation. I would just give a brief introduction about Royal Society of Chemistry, what we are doing, and a little bit about our partnership, how we want to take it forward. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Narihari Shastri and CSIR for giving an opportunity for us to work with this on a unique program, which I feel in terms of delivery, innovativeness, as well as it is being done on a massive scale. And more importantly, the program is virtual and online. And we are really privileged to work with CSIR labs across India and other partners, including India Alliance. And I think Sarah gave a wonderful presentation in terms of how Wellcome Trust and the India Alliance is doing fantastic work in terms of promoting research collaborations between India and UK. As well, In terms of RSC, RSC and CSR have been working for a long time. We have been collaborating on various projects. We have done some earlier. We did some work on chemoinformatics, on open source drug discovery. That's how our partnership goes with Dr. Shastri as well. Now, working on this project is very, very interesting. I think RSC and CSI will also work together how we can support the program. We want to bring international participation. We want to bring international expertise, and also to help people, help students in developing their skills and knowledge as well. RSC will be identifying researchers from UK and India who can become mentors, who can guide you on some projects, as well as who can also deliver, some of the researchers can deliver scientific lectures on emerging areas. We are also keen to work and organize online lectures on how to publish research papers, which are conducted by our editors from our leading journals. As you are aware, the program, and I think a lot of things has been mentioned earlier. I think there's a little bit of lack of clarity right now, but I think it will be much more clear in the evening. I think we will be, the program is evolving, and we will be in touch with CSIR to really understand, to broadly, to finalize the broad contours of the program as well. Before that, what I would like to do is also give a short introduction about us, about our work in India and globally as well. As I understand, the community here is not only from chemical sciences, I think but a multidisciplinary one. I thought it would be nice to really share a little more information about what we do and in India and globally as well. Interestingly, just wanted to give you a small perspective, is that we were founded in 1841 by a group of scientists, doctors, entrepreneurs, and industrialists. And they believed in the power of change, change for a better world. And they believed the power of chemical science to change the world. Just to take one example, our first president, Thomas Graham, invented the life-saving process of dialysis. And over the last 175 years, I think RSC has evolved far beyond the scale imagined by our founders. I think today we are a leading global chemistry community. We have over 54,000 members across 100 countries. But what has remained true is our mission to advance excellence in chemical sciences. And this is for good of science and humanity. As one of the oldest, continuous chemical society in the world, we are proud of our heritage. We are very focused on the future, and India is a very key part of that future. And India is already a major center for chemical excellence. It is now the second biggest source of research in RSC journals, and its influence is growing rapidly. We are delighted that RSC is a publisher of choice among researchers. I understand most of you are undergrads and postgrads, but I think as you start conducting this research and doing this mentoring program, you will understand the importance of journals. You will come across different journals to really do the literature survey. I think this is where RSC could be one of the source, but there are lots of other source of knowledges as well. Just to give, we have published over 2,000 papers in 2019, which is very, very significant. India is among the top 3 publishers for RSC journals. It also means that the Indian science is growing, and it's been growing significantly over the last 10 years. And what we have seen, the number has grown from 200 papers to 200,000 papers in the last 10 years. I think this is very significant for RSC. And we really value our India's contribution to our journals as authors, as reviewers, as well as editorial board members. One of our goal of RSC is to really bring international conferences to India and world-class conferences, as well as support local activities as well. We have brought a lot of our flagship and prestigious event to India. For example, we successfully organized a unique scientific meeting such as Farad discussions on emerging technology, emerging sciences. And these discussions have a history of more than 100 years. And I understand in 2020, right now with the COVID situation, I don't think we would be organizing more activities, but we would be exploring bringing those activities or knowledge platforms on the virtual, on online as well. And this program is one of those links to bring that activity as well as that knowledge to the global to the virtual platform. Just to give an example, the scale of activities we have done in India, we all organized over 75 such activities for advancing chemical sciences. This is through direct support, indirect support, we have been trying to do it to advance the chemical sciences. We are also not, this is leaving aside our outreach activities, which our members do in India, and they support a lot of these in schools and colleges. I think this is one where I feel the students, the participants of the research part, this one could really contact our local sections, which are present across five regions, north, west, south, and in Deccan area, where these members could also act as some of your fellow, some of the members can act as mentors for your projects as well. And we will try to bring these senior fellows from our community to really engage with you to help you in your research projects going forward as well. Apart from this, we also organize, we have a bigger activity in the area of education. Through our outreach activities, we have trained around 23,000 teachers across 6,000 schools in 23 states. And this is been supported by Dr. Yusuf Hamid of Cipla Group, who came to us to really improve the quality of teaching, make some meaningful contribution. And we have successfully completed the phase 1. We have launched into a second phase of program, and he has given us a generous contribution to conduct these programs as well. One of the things what we really key to our RSC is that we like to collaborate with a lot of people. Collaboration is the key to way we work in RSC. And we collaborate with multiple partners, multiple organizations, industry and academia to really further the cause of chemistry. And India plays an extremely important role in the future of chemistry. We are committed to partnering with Indian scientists to share their knowledge with global science community. And this regard, we organized Newton Researcher Links workshops with British Council last year, and where a lot of the early career researchers could really participate in these workshops in enhancing their knowledge as well. In fact, in the last 24 years, we have organized 29 such research workshops. These are on vital importance of world, from advancing in antimicrobial resistance, developing nanomaterials, to tackle water treatment and air pollution. And these are some of the areas where I think you should be looking at in terms of identifying some projects which could address some global challenges. And these areas could be some of those multidisciplinary areas we would require chemists, engineers, as well as biologists to really work on some of these projects as well. And these projects can also, I think this program has also potential to build strong bridges between UK and India as well. Finally, I would like to say that people who have enrolled for this significant program, I think this is a great platform to really network, collaborate, and really enhance your knowledge as well. I think this platform will also give great insight into research, project development, and interaction with scientists and leading labs across the country. I feel that you should make best use of this opportunity over the next 2 months. I think I understand your will be confines of the 4 walls of the house, or maybe you can really have some opportunity with some restrictions eased, working with different laboratories. I think that's fantastic. But is there anything, please, we can get in touch with us, RSC, as well as in terms of projects. We would really be happy to help you. And I feel I just wish you all the best for this 2-month program. Thanks. And I'm happy to take some questions related to RSC or how we can support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh sir. We're just looking for some questions just in a few seconds.
Yeah.
There are no certain questions, but indeed they are thanking you for the wonderful talk, sir.
Yep.
Okay, sir. Then we won't be taking that much question because there is a lot of thanks from all the attendees. I would like to mention that here that we are also going live in Facebook and YouTube. So you are being watched now around 16,000 people around who are applicants of this SRTP program. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. Thank you for being a part of making the SRTP successful. We will continue for another 2 months. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.